My grandfather spoke his own language. At school I heard English, and at home I heard Italian, but with Nonno Johnny, I heard Nonno Johnnyisms. So he would talk in this incredible combination of English and Italian, right? And even better, he would give some English words their own Nonno Johnny flavor. So, for example, juice that you drink became a juicy. The quaint little Hampton village of Amagansett became Amaganistan. And my personal favorite, the interjection, wow, became, wow. Right, my dad John became Ja, my uncle Louis became Loose, and all my friends got their own names, right? So my friend Tim became Atimi, right? Connor became Connie and sometimes Kane. And my personal favorite, my ex-girlfriend Hallie, in the words of my grandfather, became Hell. So only recently did I learn that my grandfather was actually a polyglot, right? He was proficient in English, Italian, Calabrese, and the combination of all three, which I learned is called Italese. But in all seriousness, my grandfather's words themselves did have profound impact on me. Whenever our family would gather around the table for Sunday dinner, over the clatter and clamor that is characteristic of Italian families, as I'm sure we all know here, my grandfather's voice always resonated. I was able to live vicariously through him while hearing his stories, right? Stories of his Italian homeland or of his immigrant experience, stories which helped me to found the foundation of my own identity. And so thanks to all four of my grandparents, all of whom I was blessed to be able to know, and specifically Nonno Johnny, from a young age I began to take pride in my Italian heritage, pride that I still hold dearly today. So when I was given the opportunity to speak not only about him, but with him on this program, I was ecstatic. For one, I would finally have documented proof of my grandfather's intriguing speech patterns. But more importantly, I was happy that I could be there with him to encourage and support him in the sharing of his stories, with the rest of the world. And quite frankly, the filming could not have achieved that goal any better. Everything that we discussed arose completely organically, almost as if the cameras weren't even there at all. And the program itself deserves immense credit for being able to capture my grandfather at his absolute best, unscripted and authentic. But more broadly, I'm proud to have been a part of this program because it is an everlasting testament, a time capsule of sorts. An everlasting testament or a time capsule of sorts to our Italian history. A world of a wave of immigrants that is slowly disappearing before our eyes as we Italian Americans become farther and farther removed from it. Programs of this nature help maintain that virtual link between the experiences of our forefathers and the experience of those of today's Italian Americans, even as the physical links begin to fade. However, even more broadly, this program and programs like it propagate an understanding of one's own culture, and in doing so help in formulating an understanding of all culture. Because I believe that culture in and of itself has the potential to be both divisive and inclusive. But it seems as though today's society focuses more on that divisive part, right? The part that separates us, the us against them, the no gray area, the they are their culture and we are our own. But I believe that that societal focus on divisiveness stems from the fact that individuals are losing their initial connections to their own cultures. And so the significance of this program's ability to create those virtual ties between an individual and their own culture is then to allow those ties to extend between cultures themselves. To realize that between cultures, one may value one food as opposed to another, but although they value different foods, both have a fundamental appreciation for food. One culture may value one language as opposed to another, but both still fundamentally value language. And one may have different tradition than another, but both still fundamentally value the concept of tradition. So with an understanding of our Italian American culture's own food, own language, and own tradition, through programs like this one, comes the important realization of that inclusive aspect of all cultures. And with that, I thank you for listening to my spiel, and I will now introduce the first panelist, Eileen Risotto Sire, correct? Riotto, forgive me. I like risotto though. Riotto Sire, an American psychotherapist, founder and chair emerita of the National Organization of Italian American Women.
Risotto sounds good, Amen.
It sure does. I think you all would agree that he gets our vote, right? Yay! We have a budding politician in our hands here.
I had the privilege of
being part of Letizia's wonderful program with with my granddaughter. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to have an exchange with her that I know with all the time we spent together we would not have had without Letizia's prompting. And I have only one regret, that I never had that conversation with my grandmother. And I was thinking this morning about her. She came over as a 16-year-old from Sicily, and the only conversation we had about her childhood was, so Grandma, what did you do when you were a little girl? And her answer was, I righted the donkey. And that's about all I could find out about her early years. Of course, my grandfather was another interesting character. Every time he spoke about Italy, everything was better there. The lemons were like grapefruit, and everything was just spectacular. And one day when I was about 7 or 8, I looked at him and I said, so Grandpa, why did you leave? And his answer was, And so that's my memories of my grandparents. I was very pleased to do this with my granddaughter because she is of a very mixed background. My husband is Irish. Her father is Russian, Polish, and she does have a strong Italian identity, and I hope she will continue our traditions. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Ms. Siri. And next we'll be hearing from Linda Carlozzi, or to me, Aunt Linda, who has dedicated over 30 years to the Italian-American community, serving on the board of directors for the National Organization of Italian-American Women, and is a current member of that organization, the Columbus Citizens Foundation, and the Columbian Lawyers in New York. Thank you.
You forgot NIAF.
And
JD. My darling nephew, JD. I think we can all agree. I went to college with his dad and his mom. He is his father's son. There's no question about it. However, you did take the best of mom too. I think you're a good combination. So as Pat said, I'm not a grandmother, and I'm not even a mom, except to my 2 dogs. But I met Letizia. I've known Letizia and met Ottorino recently, and I saw some of the first videos, and I was so excited about this program because in these videos, I'm actually a first generation Italian American. My mother, although she was born here, she went back to Italy. She was just 11 months old, and she went back with her family. And my mother had the courage and the conviction to come back to the US when she was just 21 years old. And then she married my dad. And they were both from the same town near Campobasso in the region of Molise. I know Molise is in the house back there. So they left Italy. My father left Italy and left his family behind, literally. And they came and started a life in the United States. And I was the last of 3 children. So my parents didn't realize it because they would speak dialect, hoping. My 2 brothers didn't speak Italian. I did not know my grandparents. My maternal grandparents had predeceased me, and my paternal grandparents were in Italy. I only met my grandfather. I met him once. But my next door neighbor raised me, Angela Maria. She lived to 102 years old. She spoke the very old dialect of our hometown. So my parents didn't realize I understood dialect. And they would speak dialect when they didn't want the kids to understand. Unfortunately, I did. And my brothers would say to me, what did mom and dad say? Well, if you don't cut it out and stop bothering me, they're sending you away to school. They believed me. They believed me. And I didn't realize this incredible gift from literally my next door neighbor, and I did call her Nonna. She was Angela Maria, but I called her Nonna. And my parents, and growing up, I didn't realize the difference of not, I just thought everybody grew up having pasta on Sundays. What did I know? And it wasn't until Fordham turned to meeting John Calvelli and later Louis Calvelli, and we're lifelong friends, that I realized I was with these other like-minded individuals and what my heritage was. I begged my parents to let me go to Italy. I was in college, my first trip to Italy. And I told Letizia in an interview that was the trip that changed the trajectory of my life. Because I met my family in Italy that I am very close to. And that is where this fierce pride in my Italian heritage was born. It was there, but I just didn't realize it. So for me, this series and what Letizia and Ottorino are doing is so incredibly valuable, because not only to preserve this legacy of these incredible individuals, and I know most of them, and to my left is my mentor, to my right is my mentor. These are the ladies that knew me growing up, and yes, they were 12, they were young. But to me, this is so important to pass on to the next generation. And when I see J.D. Calvelli, you make me so proud, because you're actually your parents' son, but you're even more than that. And so that makes me proud to see the next generation really holding on and maintaining their heritage. So with that.
All right. And then last but certainly not least, we'll be hearing from Patricia DeStacy Harrison, the Vice Chair of NIAF, Chief Executive Officer of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and one of the interviewees in the Italian Leadership in America project.
Thank you, and I'm thrilled to be here with Aileen and with Linda and with all of you, and just watching that, to me it's a circle. So you could be doing these interviews and people talking about with their grandchildren, or the same people could be in the leadership section. It really doesn't matter, because as Matilda Como said, it will always stay with you. And what that means is no matter where you go, that's who you are. So it's very, very important to understand who you are and where you came from. And when I was little and my grandmother died, my grandfather, there was a big discussion. He had 7 children, and my father was one of them. And at that time, it would be a terrible thing to put someone in a nursing home. So the question was, where was he going to go? And my father said, he's coming with us. So my grandfather lived with us for a very long time, and at that point, I think it was 86. And he had such a profound influence on my life, because I was able to observe, one step removed from my parents, who were busy working and really, to a certain extent, didn't have that time to tell stories, and just the warm relationship I had with him. And he would play this record over and over again. It was called Enjoy Yourself, It's Later Than You Think. And for me, that really became a mantra to a strange sense, because what gets imprinted in a young person's brain, you're just listening to a song. But it meant every day, you better find that place to enjoy yourself. And it was also a connection to another story. He would ask me, out of the blue, maybe all our grandparents were a little interesting characters. And you want to be a turtle, or you want to be an eagle? And he wasn't really interested in my response, because the turtle just has the head in all the time, and they're given a home. They don't do anything, and they go very slow. But the eagle's the symbol of our country, flies really high. So now what do you want to be? What do you want to be? You couldn't even get it out. I want to be an eagle. I'll be an eagle. I'm going to be an eagle. And it was also planted in my head that maybe I could fly. Maybe growing up in Brooklyn, in this very interesting, in a way, almost a small town environment where everyone knew who you were, and everyone really had an identity. You were Italian, you were Jewish, that was about it. Sorry, the Irish didn't show up where we were. There was a Chinese restaurant, but that wasn't significant. And you really identified with being Italian. And I thought, when I left Brooklyn and I came to DC and I got involved in politics and various different things in professional life, I've heard and continue to this day hear my grandfather's voice. Do you want to be a turtle or an eagle? And yeah, because you make decisions, they're not easy. And what's so wonderful about this series, when Matilda Cuomo was talking about his moral compass. So you get your moral compass from your heritage. And so you're always taking this with you, no matter what the situation is, what the challenge is. So it's not just this kind of get together with NIAF and once a year you go to a gala and we sing songs and eat. It is a reinforcement of what it means to have a moral compass, to be connected to a heritage that had so many challenges and yet knew what it meant to enjoy yourself because it's later than you think. So I'm very proud that PBS was able to tell our story through the Italian Americans. It's been reissued this month. And a lot of people had no idea beyond the popular culture who we are, how strong we are, how tough we are, but at the same time, how much fun we are occasionally. Anyway, most of the time. Thank you.